Good morning, everyone. I'm here with Pepi Marchetti, who is a senior director at Gagosian and the founding director of the Rome Outpost, which started in 2007 and which I learned today was actually the first of the smaller city Gagosian outposts. The original ones were London, LA, and New York. And Rome was a kind of experiment, I suppose, to see how things would work. So Pepi is a pioneer, and she also was a pioneer during COVID, where she formed an organization with a co-gallerist, a fellow gallerist from the Galleria Continua, Lorenzo Fiaschi, which resulted in a number of things that she's going to tell us about. But let me ask you first about the context of forming this collective, which you called Italics. Why, when, how?
Thank you, Roslyn. Hello, everybody. First, I think this is called lightning talks, yes, which means that it will last very short. So I decided to bring some visuals that hopefully will integrate the few things that I will be able to say. Italians are notoriously verbose, so I know this will be a challenge for me. Thank you to the Art for Tomorrow conference and Democracy Culture for inviting me to talk about something that is very dear to my heart and has taken up a lot of my time in the past 3 years. It's also important to say that it's my voice, but it's the voice of a collective of 69 galleries that eventually came together to form this at a very difficult time. It was, in fact, just a little over 3 years ago, in the spring of 2020, in a very somber phone call with Lorenzo of Galleria Continua, that we started daydreaming about this initiative. We started wondering what we could do, at a time when museums were closed, our galleries were closed, artists were calling about their exhibitions, long time planned, being indefinitely postponed or canceled altogether. What we could do to support the ecosystem of art, come together, creating synergies between peers, and also give back. I mean, we really felt that it was a moment when we should come up with an idea, not a commercial idea, but an idea that would allow us to give back to a larger community our experience as a center of cultural production.
So how did you start? What were your initial, you didn't start with 69 galleries, I presume?
No, well, we were just two on that phone call, but we were locked in, sheltered in place. But we thought of inviting a few closer colleagues that we thought would be interested in developing, a number of these ideas with us. So it was 9, including the two of us in the beginning, sort of like forming the board of directors of Italics, Art and Landscape. That was the name that we came up with. And eventually, including many other colleagues of ancient, modern, and contemporary art. And this is a very important element in the DNA of what we ended up doing. And I think you're seeing some of the images of what we've been doing in the last three years. Lorenzo and I and several of us strongly believe that art has no time limits. All art has been contemporary in its own time, so the contemporary label can really embrace so many different moments. And in our experience, certainly in mine, running a contemporary art gallery in Italy, even the most radical artists really want to engage with art and history from the past. So that was definitely a main ingredient of what we were about to do.
So Pepi, you said it wasn't a commercial enterprise, so you weren't setting up so you formed a website, that was what
Right.
you did, but you weren't doing that in order to sell art.
No.
So what was the idea?
Well, it was also a time, you have to think about it, was a very difficult time for Italy. We were basically considered, in the very, very first few weeks and months of the pandemic, the gateway of the virus to the West. We were under siege. We went overnight from being the hottest destination on the planet to a place where we thought nobody would have ever come back to. And so we decided to focus on something that was also very close to our way of being gallerists. The way that Italy is, an unparalleled place that offers, an encounter between art, history, landscape, and use that, as the main ingredient of our initiative. So we created a website. Obviously, online was the only way at that time, where each of us would contribute tips and stories accumulated over time of working with artists in Italy, traveling around the country, and learning about off-the-beaten-track experiences.
So in fact, it was a kind of fantasy travelogue for homebound
Absolutely.
during those first months.
Yeah, it's all told in first person. We were keen on making it available from the very beginning in Italian, English, and Chinese to try to make it as available as possible, free for all. And really, again, trying to capitalize on what we felt we could give back through our life as gallerists in Italy, or international galleries working in Italy.
And as soon as things opened up, you actually moved into a more practical mode of actually staging exhibitions. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that related to this kind of travel, imaginary or fantasy travelogue idea that you'd had that you then made more real?
Yeah, well, obviously we are obsessed with exhibitions. We're obsessed with coming together. As you know, art is this very gregarious experience. At least that's the way we see it. So as soon as public gatherings were allowed, or even right before then, we started planning on an in-presence emanation of our initiative, and we created Panorama. You can see, in 2021, September 2021, we hosted our first widespread exhibition. It was actually an island-wide exhibition on the island of Procida, which is a small island in the Gulf of Naples. Everybody goes to Ischia, everybody goes to Capri. Nobody goes to Procida, and it's really like a dream place. We staged a curated exhibition with 50 artists in locations, public, private, outdoor, indoor, that created an itinerary throughout the entire island. And it was not only art that was displayed, but it was performances, public talks, visited by 5,000 people, which, especially with something put together in a short time with very little resources at a time when people were not traveling was quite a stunning achievement.
Do you think that most of those people came from people who had subscribed to the website? What was your response to the website in those early days of COVID?
It was quite a good response. Obviously, we all worked through word of mouth and in many other ways through our individual network of relations to promote what we were doing. And we still do. I mean, it's still something that is funded in a very grassroots way, and so we use all the resources we can, including, again, word of mouth and our own resources to spread it. But it was really an incredible experience. I mean, you can see the signage. We were working day and night ourselves, putting up signage, creating opportunities to discuss about art and the connection between art and landscape, which I think is something that Italy can certainly
use. You told me that you would like to do one of these panoramas every year in a different region of Italy. So that gives you about 20 years to go, right?
Yes, exactly. I mean, the plan is definitely, and we are approaching our third. In fact,
where was the second one?
The second one was in Puglia, in the coastal town called Monopoli, where we exhibited 60 artists. Again, as the first edition was curated by Vincenzo De Bellis, then curator of the Walker Art Center. 50 artists spread all around town. There were 7 performances, including one which I think you saw an image of, which entailed swimming at dawn. It was connected to a very traditional rite, local ritual, which is supposed to give you health for the entire year. There was a panel, like a program of public talk every day, and 12,000 people attended. There were lines, outside the several locations, many of which were open, including this one, for the first time in decades. That decommissioned church had not been seen by anybody living in the town of Monopoli.
So you really try to engage with the local communities, with the local. With the region?
Absolutely. That's very much part of what we're doing. We work with the local administration and with the local the public. In Monopoli, for example, we worked with the local school, training students to be guide of the exhibitions. We worked with the local library, to which we ended up donating dozens of volumes about art that really enlarged and
enriched.
enriched their